Hey everyone, this is Jose coming to you with episode 7 of the Llama Lounge, where we talk about life, learning, and leadership. In this episode, we'll get to speak with Gloria Weatherspoon about diversity, the importance of emotional intelligence, and get some of the basics about Ramadan. Get ready for a great episode.
Life, learning, leadership, the Llama Lounge.
Welcome everyone to episode 7 of the Llama Lounge. This is Jose coming to you from Delaware, and on the line I also have one of my best friends, Joe Bogdan. How you doing, brother?
What's up, brother, man? Hey, welcome to the front lines, bro. So, hey, for the listeners out there that don't know, Jose does all of the heavy work, lifting in the background, engineering stuff, trying to make us sound good. And we're real excited to have him up in the front lines. And I suspect one of the reasons why he was so excited to jump on this one is because of our guest today, maybe the only one who could have brought the mighty Oz from behind the curtains.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, right? And there's a couple other folks coming up that I thought it'd be great too. But when we talked about this episode and who we're having on, I thought about me back at Travis at California where we all met, and I remember her coming through our squadron like a firestorm, man. Like just brought all this energy and all this stuff. It was dope. And I remember her always doing this thing where she would say, "You'll be fine." And I just knew that whenever that happened, I was about to get real uncomfortable and get a lot of growing. So it was good. Yep.
Yeah, 100% true.
So I thought this would be good, man. How's it out there in California right now? Everything still good with the response?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I was telling some other folks that in the last 2 weeks, so we were in NorCal, had a little bit of a lockdown, right? Shelter at home. And it was pretty clear on the roads for, the initial part of it. And the last 2 weeks, I felt like it was getting a little bit more dense out there. So, I wasn't 100% sure, but yeah, after about 2 weeks of sample size, I think people are fed up with it, man. People are just like, I'm going out. So, so that's a little bit different. It's not like it normally is, but it's definitely a little bit more. So, it's interesting to see how this all pans out.
Yeah, it's been good out here, to be honest with you. It's a little more remote area, which I think kind of played into our favor. It was easier to lock things down from that perspective, but it's been good too, because I know for me, part of my resiliency recently has been trying to get after new things. Well, there was a article we talked about where the F word, right, and failing. And so I've just been trying to find new things that I am terrible at and just trying to get better at them. So it's been fun. It's been good times. Spent a lot of time with the family.
Yeah. That's where growth is. Take the hardest route always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, without further ado, we are here to very honored to have Chief Master Sergeant Gloria Weatherspoon on the webcast. Glo is currently Senior Enlisted Advisor for DEOMI at Patrick Air Force Base in Florida. So how are you out there? How are you doing, Glo?
Hi, friend. Just kind of hanging in there. Everybody's home. Rodney, the kids are home. And so he's Coach Daddy, of course, so they're doing workouts and keeping busy.
Nice.
Me, I'm just, enjoying being home. Teleworking is a little weird because I get my energy from people, so I have to kind of find things to continue to be upbeat or whatever. So I just keep getting dressed. Every day I get dressed. and it's so, because every time Rodney's like, "Where are you going?" So
the living room.
yeah, but everything has been great. The challenge with having a schoolhouse that people normally come to, we kind of shift our thoughts and figure out how we're going to get these folks trained in this new environment. So that's been a challenge, and I love a challenge. So that that's been fun. But we got so many smart people down there at DEOMI that I'm not worried. So we're just talking through some of those stuff just to see what we're going to do for the rest of the year.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Have you guys found that you guys are more looking towards like push classes off, which is what we've done here at Delaware? Or are you guys looking to just go like virtual, where you guys push things to the internet and try to do it that way?
We are looking at we're looking at virtual first because we don't want to just stop training altogether. So what we're doing now is looking at alternative means, and just by some of the research we've been doing, I didn't realize how many platforms, unless they just popped up with the environment, how many platforms you could actually use to supplement what we do at DEOMI, because it's very intense. It's a lot of interpersonal, intrapersonal reflection and learning about yourself. So we definitely want to have a class, like we definitely do. So we're exploring all of those options to be able to get that done before we just say we're done for the year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know it's interesting, right? Because I've seen my children mature over the past couple of weeks in ways I just didn't imagine. You know, little Jose, I wake up and I'm an early riser, so I'm up like at 4:30 and I'm out there trying to do my thing, you know, for myself. And he'll come down like at 6:30 and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Dad, I gotta do my homework. You know, I got goals." And I'm like, "All right, man, let me know what you need me to do for you." You know, so it's been good, right? So I definitely appreciate that. So my first question, I guess, would be, how would you describe your life and leadership journey, right? Like, how did you become Glow? How did you get to the point where you're at?
Okay, so it's interesting because I am the only person in my entire family who voluntarily joined the military. And my family was confused. Legitimately, they didn't understand, like, well, why are you doing this? Where did all of this come from? And it was so weird because I believe in signs, right? So if I see anything 3 times, I got to go do that, which is, it's not weird, but it's worked, right? So literally one day, a recruiter came to the mall. I was in the mall shopping and I walked past somebody in their blues. And I was like, that's interesting. And then I see a couple days later, I'm like, when the Air Force first started doing the Aim High campaign and it was motivating and all the planes are flying and they don't say nothing else, they just aim high. You know, and so it was like, okay. And then, so the bus that I used to take to work does a detour. We go past a recruiter, which I didn't even know where the recruiting station was, again, because I wasn't looking for it. So that was the 3, and then I go in there. But what made me go was, and this is something, you know, that I don't share often, in my family, the first funeral that I ever went to was a cousin of mine who was 19. He was killed going into a skating ring to pick up my other 2 cousins. And so I was 13 years old when that happened. And so for a season, maybe about a 5-year span, I would say from 13 to 18, I buried 4 cousins that way, that were killed that way. And so they were, you know, Lloyd was 19, and then Amin and Sultan were my age. We were all born, you know, in the same year. So that scared the crap out of me. And so Philadelphia wasn't the city of brotherly love back then. You could go anywhere and shots would ring out. The block that I lived on, people were getting shot. Like it was just so crazy. And I wanted to go. I had to get out of there. And I wanted my mom to be proud of me, right? Because, you know, you all know me. I could be a little feisty. I was getting fired all the time. I couldn't keep a job. So my mom one day, she was just like, what are you going to do? You can't just do this. You can't hop from job to job, just go out, you know, not really do nothing with your life. What are you going to do? And so that sign of 3 happened, and I came home and I was like, I'm going to join the Air Force. And she was like, wait, whoa, hold up.
Pump the brakes.
What are you doing? So that happened, but you know, I went to, you know, you get there, you go to basic training, and just me being naturally me, right? Just, you know, before I matured and understood that it was leadership, it was given the very negative connotation of being bossy, right? So I take all of those attributes and I go to basic, and my TI at the time, who actually just retired as a lieutenant colonel, I'll get to how I know that. I get to basic training and I just do what I'm supposed to do. You know, I make people laugh. I want everybody to be happy and we're working together. And so I think I understood what leadership was when I became an element leader and had to be responsible for other people. And so my TI actually took a lot of time with me because I made a lot of mistakes. You know, I tell people, don't ask me, you need to go and figure it out. And he would pull me to the side and be like, nope. That's not how this works. And he would hold me accountable for stuff that they did. And it like I did a lot of crying. I was angry because I'm like, I shouldn't have to be responsible for these people. But towards the end of basic going into tech school, I understood that my job, whether they worked for me or not, that we were all airmen. And I loved that, right? And taking care of each other and doing what we needed to do. And, and over the course of my career, I fell in and out of love, but like, that was it. That's when I was just like, you know what, standing in front of the Donna facility, Chow Hall then, Donna facility now, looking at the handbook we had to read and trying to figure out where there were no women that were chief master sergeants of the Air Force. None. I didn't even know that there was a female chief. There were none in my book. I was just like, well, I want that job. That's what I'm gonna do. And so it bit me, and I was just like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. And so back to my TI. So he retired as a lieutenant colonel, security forces. And once we got email, I would stalk him because I never wanted to be stationed anywhere near him. And so what happened was, when I made chief, I had found some old pictures of him knife handing me, and I sent him those pictures in a really nice note telling him thank you. So.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah. I remember that one time, one of the many trips that we got to go to the Expeditionary Center, and me and Jose and I think Jesse Bame was in the car with us.
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
Tanya. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah, we took that wrong turn in Philly, man, and we went. We were trying to go to Pat and Gino's, and I don't know what Bame did, but we got off the bridge and we were underneath it. And look, so I grew up in Jackson Heights, Queens. I lived in Tacoma, Washington, and been to some rougher areas over there, and it failed in comparison to what we saw in South Philly that day.
And that's exactly where I'm from, South Philly.
Oh man, I was telling you, man. I thought it was like a movie. Like I was like, is this a movie? It was like you're used to seeing bars on the windows, but not the entire patio, right?
Yeah. It was like that Dave Chappelle skit, right? Like bail bonds, bonfire. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, there was a bonfire right outside in front of somebody's house in the 55-gallon drum. I was like, whoa.
I'm telling you, and my family just experienced so much tragedy. When I was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base, my cousin's 12-year-old son was killed. They were, just shots fired all the time in her neighborhood. And so she sent him to my aunt's neighborhood where she thought he would be safer. And a child his age had a gun, was playing with a gun, and killed my 12-year-old nephew.
Man.
Wow.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah. And there's a lot of stories like that out there too. And that's just, but I think it's awesome that you were able to use that as motivation to get out. And like, to me, to Jose's point earlier, is when I first met you, I just like immediately was attracted to your energy and your realness. And I really looked up to you, and I'm just so grateful that we're all friends. Yeah, that was all.
One thing I was thinking about as you were talking, right, is I didn't realize that we had such a similar story, right? Like you talked about the 3 signs. For me, I was 17. I had some offers from some schools, and I was thinking about doing it, and I just couldn't see myself asking my parents to pay for my way through life again when I knew that I was capable. And first recruiter I went to, though, was the Marine Corps, right? And I went there, and I was like, yeah, let's do this. I was ready to go, and my parents said, at that you have to be signed. Your parents have to sign for you when you're 17. And my dad said, absolutely not. And I was just ready to go because similar to you, 2 weeks before I left, my brother-in-law was murdered, and I had to get out. I didn't want to be there anymore. So it was different. But as Joe kind of talked about, right? Like, I think those things shape our past, but it doesn't define our future. And the thing that I loved about the military was everything is in front of you, and you decide how far you want to go, and you decide where you want to get there. A lot of that is in your control. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I know it's not often easy. One thing that
Hey, real quick. So before we go forward, I was thinking, I just want to make sure everybody is 100% aware. Actually, the first time I met Glo, it wasn't like immediate connection. I think she yelled at me. So I just want to put that out there real quick. I was working at the AFRC, right? At the front desk. I think I was kind of new too. I didn't even know what was going on. She walked in and said, hey, where's the shirts meeting? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, it's supposed to be here. I was like, it's not here. She's like, it's supposed to be here. And I'm like looking at the calendar and I'm like, ma'am, it's not on the calendar. I don't know where it's at. And then she like stormed out the building. I was like, man, who was that lady?
Yeah.
I want to say, I think it was before I got my diamond.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I still didn't know my way around on the trail.
That was
Sorry,
awesome.
Joe.
I was like, yeah. So it was our second encounter where I was like, oh, this person's awesome.
Good. Glad I got to redo.
That's funny. So one of the things that I remember you brought to the unit at the time was you had just come from EO, right? And so I'm a maintainer by trade, right? And so a lot of times maintainers shy away from that stuff because, you know, sometimes we pride ourselves in being not being politically correct and saying what we think and this kind of stuff. And I remember you got there and it was just a breath of fresh air because it wasn't it wasn't forced down your throat. It was we're real people trying to have real conversations, but you need to be able to communicate to people that come from diverse backgrounds and be inclusive with it, right? So one of the things we want to talk to you about today is, you know, your current role. You're at DEOMI. What is DEOMI? What is that? What do they do for not just for the Air Force, but for the Department of Defense as a whole?
Yeah, so DEOMI is the acronym Defense Equal Opportunity Management Institute. And we are the schoolhouse for the Department of Defense for all of the equal opportunity advisors across the board, to include the Coast Guard. Wow. And so not just that, so that's what we do for the military, but we also have mediation courses and courses on the civilian EEO side as well. We also have a leadership training awareness seminar, which we're kind of updating and working on so we could become a part of senior enlisted leaders, commanders, and first sergeant professional education. We want to be the place where everyone comes to get that training. And so DEOMI's been around since, matter of fact, next year we'll celebrate our 50-year anniversary.
Oh, wow.
DEOMI used to be the Defense Race Relations Institute. And what's crazy is, you know, Travis had a riot in the 70s. And because of that riot, DEOMI was born.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Kind of like, you know, how I'm connected all there.
Full
Circle. Yep. And so the schoolhouse, it's about 62 military, 30 civilians, and then about 30 some contractors, something like that. So it's about 130 of us total in that building. So we're total force. We have Air National Guard, Reserve, Army National Guard, and Army Reserve there too.
That's awesome.
Yep. So we're across the board. It is a lot of personalities. It's a lot of personalities, but it's also a lot of fun, because the one thing I did learn is that once I figured out that foundationally our basis is all exactly the same, I was dangerous, right? Like nobody could come to me and be like, well, we don't do this in the Army. And I'm like, really? Because I think you do, you know. So.
You just call it something different.
Right. So it's really fun. I met some really amazing people that I never would have crossed paths with otherwise.
Yeah. And you know what's cool about that too is what you said. It's like you're teaching it, but you got to live it too because of the wide swath of people that are there. So it's like you're applying 100%. Everything you're teaching all day.
Yes. And it's a little bit more simple because when humans behave like humans, right? And everybody has emotions and we struggle with communication and all this stuff. You know, it's easier at DEOMI because I can go, now you know better than that.
Right.
And you're like, oh yeah, I do. Yes, you do. You know better than that, right? Go fix it. So it's a little bit easier, you know, to kind of handle challenges, but we have the same challenges every other unit has because you have people there.
You have people.
They are naturally people, and you know, the people at DEOMI, I would say, crave connectedness probably more than any place I've ever been. Like everybody wants connectedness and wants to feel like, you know, they belong and feel like they matter. But at DEOMI, I feel like it's heightened because we teach it, right? So
that
we
makes
teach
sense.
Perfectly. And they're like, you know, Chief, you didn't say hello to me. And I'm like, what? When? I didn't see you. You know, so it's very, it's just even so. Even now in this environment, once a week, we visit with every section just to see, how they're doing, what's going on, how are you, random text, so everybody can still feel connected. So it's good. It's good. I enjoy it.
Your staff is like, it ranges though, right? From senior leader all the way down, just like any other type of unit. You're going to have various ranks.
We do. So our most junior is so DEOMI is Army heavy, which is a little different, right? For an Air Force chief, DEOMI is Army heavy, and so our most junior person is a E5 soldier, a sergeant.
Okay.
And then our most senior is we have 3 E9s right now. We're about to get a 4th, so we'll have Navy, Army, Marine Corps, and me.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because I was thinking, like, whenever you're in a schoolhouse of any type, when you're just talking about that, I always wonder about the ivory tower syndrome, where like these folks are there, and then they're kind of like feeling like everybody, because you guys teach it, they get it, but then when they go to another unit somewhere, they're not getting it no more. They're like, how come? What's going on here? Right? I was like worried that they get into that mode where like, wait. Like you guys aren't saying hello to me, so it's always just a weird concern because transitioning from specialty back to operational, and it get rough out there.
It does, and a lot of people get to DEOMI and they love it and they want to stay forever. And so you have to have the tough conversation and say, I need you to take all that you are, all that you've learned, and give it back to your service. The point is to make your service better. Here's the impact you can make. So we're consistently have that conversations because people get there and they're like, I want to extend. And you're like, oh, I know you as my job as a senior enlisted advisor, I have to look beyond the one. I have to look at their career. I have to look at the impact and the benefit that they'll make when they go back to their service.
Right.
And so I'm consistently, having conversations, and I've grown as a communicator a lot. So I'll spend 2 hours, if somebody just want to talk to me about how they feel, or even if they just didn't like the decision, they just want to let know how they feel about it. But at the end of the day, they all salute smartly and press forward. So.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've always thought, when you were at EO at Travis, you and the team, I'll just be frank with you. A lot of places, they look at their EO team, and if they give them a call, they're like, "Oh no, what happened?" Right? Like, why am I getting called by EO? Right? And but for just my perspective from your team that you created over there, you created such a trust on the installation that. Because you were just real, and you took into consideration people are humans and they say things out of context, right, and things like that. And when y'all were just being proactive, plus maybe even having some investigations that were required, it put people at ease, I thought, because everybody felt like they were going to get a fair shake because y'all were honest and you knew people were people. And I just applied. That team was just awesome, and it was a lot of it was because of your leadership.
No, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think the biggest thing for us when we were at Travis is the preventative piece. And so that's why when I would go out and I would teach, like everybody was like, oh, Glo, you need to come over here, and talk to our folks. Because I would tell them, listen, I'm not here to monitor what's in your head. I don't know that. But everything that's in your head does not need to come out of your mouth.
Oh, yeah.
You cannot do that. You can't treat people this way. You have to remember that beyond this uniform is a human first. And so if anything you're going to say is going to harm that person internally, you have to stop and think about that. And I think people trusted because I didn't beat them over the head with it. We talked about it, and that's kind of what I carry with me for every EO office that I've ever been in. I've let people be them. I've had conversations, and I just told them, just honestly, why are you so bothered by that? I always would make it about that individual, and we would kind of talk through their feelings, how they felt, and then I would end up giving them the other perspective. But I love what I do. And we call it equal opportunity, right? But I learned from one of the gunny sergeants that I work with that equal opportunity is the end state. It's about understanding diversity. It's about trust and leadership. It's about trusting each other. It's about being able to communicate. It's about respect, right? Like respecting the. So once you get all of that down, the equal comes.
Yeah.
I think helping understand exactly what we do and the capabilities that we bring and that we give them at their schoolhouse. Everything that y'all saw at Travis, a lot of it was because I went through the Equal Opportunity Advisor course first.
That's
Right.
good, and it's good to know that we prepare people for that, right? Because, I come from California, very diverse, very inclusive, very it's different than other places you go, and so you have to be able to train folks and get them to understand that somebody being diverse, somebody being different, isn't a challenge on you. It can help you if you let it, because they're gonna have a different perspective. One of the things I wrote down when you were talking about where you came from and kind of the journey, right, is that you've always been unapologetically you. You've never been a fake person. You've always been yourself. You've always spoken your mind. But you've always had the relationships with people for them to understand that when you were coming at them and correcting them, or just trying to give them advice from your perspective, it never came from a mean or hurtful place. It was just, this is what you saw. And there was always good conversation. I think in a unit, in an organization, you need to be able to foster an environment where everyone feels that way, where they can come forward, they can talk, right? So how do you view diversity and inclusion in making an effective organization?
So I think, one, as a leader, you got to be willing to learn, right? Because if you walk into any organization and you think you're the smartest person there, you need to check yourself and that ego at the door. And so with diversity, it's understanding that everybody comes from different backgrounds. And so I'll share with you, I have conversations, in small pockets, mostly with other women of color. And I have the conversations, and, one of the worst things somebody can say to me, and this, y'all got me opening up on here. One of the worst things to me that somebody can say is, "Oh, Gloria, I don't see color." And I go, but it's okay to see color. It's okay to see that I am Black, I am beautiful, and I am a bad you know what. Right? Like, it's okay to see all of those things. And so you see it and then you appreciate it, right? And you don't make decisions because of, but you don't make decisions not because of, right? So accept me in all of me. And if you have a question, ask it. So I think with diversity, we have to understand, and I'll give y'all an example. When I got to DEOMI, my entire leadership team, all Black females. My colonel, the deputy, me, all Black females. And so I had never saw that before, but people had a problem with it. But at DEOMI, they would ask, well, there's no diversity there. And I say, well, let me see. My boss is in her 50s. She's from Georgia. She is very, very conservative. I'm a wild card. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm Muslim. The only thing we have in common is our skin color. Talk to me about how this is not diverse. Our backgrounds are completely different, degrees completely different, experience completely different. And so I think what people need to understand is when we say diversity, we always look at, the outer exterior stuff. When I have more in common with people who don't look like me. So you can get me with a white male boss and we could be completely the same. You have no diversity there. You have no diversity there. So I think people need to, you look at skin color and that's okay, but you still have to look beyond that, because diversity is so much more than the color of our skin. But so if we don't talk to each other, we're not going to know that. Because just like me and you, Jose, we different, but we're alike. Because we had that conversation today. We had similar backgrounds. Me and Joe, like Joe is so passionate about diversity. He's way more passionate than me, but it's my job. Right? But me and him have that connection because he knows he can go, hey, look at this for me. What do you think? And I can understand it. And I think I've never said it out loud. I love that about Joe. Like, I love that. And so you will be surprised, when people look along the wall, and I have these conversations and they go, I looked on my leadership wall and they're all, white males. And I go, well, yeah, if you look population wise, right? Like that's more likely what you're going to have. But to automatically assume they were all the same is wrong.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think, you're right. We always look at what it looks like on the surface, and just like we mostly evaluate people on just what we see initially. But yeah, 100%. I think diversity of thought, like you're bringing up, is so important. I mean, you could, like you said, you could look the same, but if you're from two totally different backgrounds, social economic class alone, let's just go with that, you'd have different perspectives on how life is. And to be able to leverage that, first of all, you got to know, you got to understand, you got to talk to that person, like you said, and then to be able to find ways to leverage it. That's all it takes. That takes deliberate planning, right?
100%.
Deliberate. Yeah. And it's not something that's just going to happen on accident. And I think that's awesome that you guys push that and that you have that perspective to be able to share with your folks. folks. That's great.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too, people have to realize, right? It's a long-term investment. Unfortunately nowadays, right, we want a quick answer. We want a quick solution. We want things to happen immediately. But if you really want to get to know someone, that's a long-term investment. It's not going to happen in the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30. I mean, we've known each other since 2010 and I'm discovering things right now that I didn't know, right? It's a long-term thing. But I think and when you get to know someone and you see where they're coming from, it allows you to understand their worldview. And then you can kind of figure out where you need how you guys can work better as a team. I remember Glo used to say something a lot, and she used to say, you can't take someone where they need to go unless you meet them where they are. And I was like, man, like it just made so much sense, right? Because it's like pulling a dog that's on a leash, right? If you don't go meet them where they're at, they're not going to follow you. You got to get there where they're at, right? Taking a horse to water. Like there's so many different things, right? So I think the same thing can be said with diversity and inclusion, right? Like you really have to understand when we're in that squadron. I don't know if you knew this, Glo, but there was by the way, this is really hard for me to call you Glo because it was always shirt. It was always chief. It's very weird. But I remember there was one of our teammates. He talked about this story where it was an African-American friend, and where this guy came from, the word saying boy didn't matter, right? And so he would call his friend boy, and finally the dude said, look, man, are we not friends? He goes, yeah, absolutely. Why? He goes, you keep calling me this, and where I'm from, this is what this means. And he's all, I didn't know that. I'm sorry, and so they were able to have a meaningful conversation versus that bad argument, right? And they were able to maintain the friendship, and they understood, and they never had any issues. But it takes that initial engagement to get through those things. So I appreciate that. So I asked you a question on text message earlier. I'm not going to ask that same question. I'm going to phrase it a little bit differently, but I think we'll get to the same kind of thing, right? So back in December of 2018, you wrote an article for us, and the article was called Mind Your EQ. Yeah. So when you think about EQ or emotional intelligence, was there a person who kind of, it made you think, oh, you know what, this is important. I got to get better at this because of something that happened to you or maybe something that happened to someone else?
Sure. So I think the worst experience that I could think of when I was young, my mom passed away in January 2001. So before that was from her second bout with cancer. So my mom she was diagnosed with cancer while I was 13. So she had fought, for years. And so she got sick again and I went home, and I didn't have a whole bunch of leave because I was separating from the Air Force. And that's what a lot of people don't know. Like I was using up all my leave. I was done. 2001 was the end of my contract. I was finished. And so when my mom got sick, she was like, I want you to come home. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can. I don't have leave and I'll come home later. My best friend called me and she said, you need to come home. Because you didn't have video chat back then. You didn't have phones. So I didn't see my mother. And so when I got home, my mom had lost all this weight. And she was my mom was sick. My mom was dying. Right. And so over time, I was telling myself that she wasn't. So I went home because she wanted us to come home for Christmas. And so I was there. And so she went to the hospital the 27th of December and they kept her. And so the doctors would tell me, hey, your mom only has this time to live. But I'm an optimist. They say your mom got 3 days to 6 weeks. I'm like, 6 weeks? I got 6 weeks. I'm gonna fix this, which was, something I had to get over, right? I'm gonna fix this. And so so my mom's in the hospital. They released her and she's home. And so I'm taking care of her, and she can still talk in and out of sleep. She's in and out of sleep, but she can still talk. And she's saying things like, it's so funny. I used to clean you. Now you're cleaning me. And, we just shared all those moments. And so,
oh no, take your time. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
so when she passed, I called my supervisor and I said, my mom passed away. I don't know what to do because I'm supposed to come back. And he goes, well, can't your brothers and sisters take care of everything because you have an inventory to do?
Wow.
So I hung up and I said, well, I guess the cops gonna come looking for me because I'm not leaving. But the part that I didn't get to, this is where I think my love for the Air Force grew. So my friends were all like me. And I'm going to call her by name because she's a senior master sergeant now, but she was an A1C then. And so he goes into the office and he's basically like, yep, I'm going to get rid of her, to airmen. This man was a master sergeant. I'm going to get rid of her, blah, blah, blah. And he's talking and talking. And through that, you know, Tamara's like, she picks up that my mom passed away. She runs and she tells our flight chief, who was a retired chief. And he calls me and he said, you do what you need to do. We got you here. And so, awesome. Yeah, so I stayed home, took care of everything. I ended up going in the whole 40 days of leave. They figured out I ended up having to re-enlist. But look, it's too late now. I don't think nobody gonna go in my records and get it. But back when networking was real, got to the closest base to Philadelphia, put a uniform on, re-enlisted. In between the people at McGuire, who probably retired now, the people at McGuire, the people at Nellis, right? Like they took care of me as an airman. And so I go on to PCS to Japan, and 12 months to the day that my mom passed away, I met Rodney.
Wow.
I always tell him, you know, he saved my life, because it's rough. You know, not because my mom was my champion, right? Because every time I go, Mom, you know, I had the type of mother that's like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be Superwoman. She'd be like, girl, well, let's go get a cape. You know, she kind of instilled in me, whatever it is you want to do, you do that. Nobody can, you know, tell you different. Nobody's going to make you believe different. And so those are some of the foundational things that I had joining the Air Force. And I think that's why I always have that message. Like when you go, oh, I can't do that, you know, because that's the part Jose didn't say. When I said, hey, I want you to be my shirt, I'm going on vacation. Well, I'm just a tech sergeant. I can't. I'll be fine, you know. And then I take my leave and I go, because I think I just need people to understand everything you set out to do. It's all you, because you're gonna have people. I have friends in my life right now who have people in their life who deliberately will sit them down and tell them what they can't accomplish. I've never heard of such a thing. That's just so crazy to me. And so I'm always the person on the other side that's like, nah, let me explain to you why you can absolutely do this. And so that's just, I got that from my mama.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that when you're talking about, for one thing, Jose, every time, Jose is one of those dudes that he always, like the way we see him, and versus the way he sees himself, there's a huge gap. I think we see like something exponentially higher because the dude's so amazing. But but yeah, some of the points that you brought in that story is just so amazing, because you know what? I think right now, and I think it's getting a little bit better. I might be just, you know, seeing it subjectively right now, but for a while it felt like everybody focused on all the bad stuff that that leadership does to them in the Air Force. And you know what? It happens. We know it does. You just shared a story that it happened, right? But there's also some great stuff, like that retired chief that took care of you. I mean,
oh, absolutely. Mr. Dan Winters. Yeah, I remember his name, Mr. Dan Winters. Yeah.
That is amazing. And I think we hold ourselves to a standard, which we should, because we should be held to a certain standard, right? Overall. And we get that beat into our heads, but we got to understand we're a microcosm of society, right? Everything that's happening out there. And I'll tell you, if you go to any organization, you're going to have plenty of toxic leaders. You're going to have plenty of great leaders, right? And you're going to have all those, and you get to choose what you want to focus on and which ones of them you want to let influence you and how you become. There's a choice there. Yeah. So that's amazing. That's a great story. And thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. I want to highlight something, right? Because you talked about it, but I want to really highlight the importance of something you talked about. Your friend, you said, is it Tamara?
Yes, Tamara.
Like,
Tamara Lily.
I got to tell you, like those to me, that's what gives me so much hope for the Air Force or for society in general, right? Because it's someone who, despite maybe not being in a position where they can make the decision, they had the boldness and they had the willingness to go and speak on behalf of somebody else, not even themselves. They went and said, this isn't right. And maybe you don't know about it, but can you please help? And I remember, you know, during my time as a shirt, you know, you'd meet those people and you're like, man, I wish I could promote them right now, because, you know, they have it. There's just something in them that they know what the purpose behind everything that we do, whether it's as a military, as a family, as an organization, whatever. They understand that it's about the people and taking care of them. And that's just something that is just awesome. So for anybody out there that's listening, you know, like, don't forget how important that is. Stand up for the other people that maybe don't have a voice or don't have the strength at that point, because we need you.
Right. And then, you know, people are going to make the assumption that she was able to just do that because, you know, like she wasn't afraid. Right. I mean, like all of us have that, you know, it might be like, well, is that going to be a bad thing for me? Or, you know, people just, it's natural that you're going to have that feeling, but she overcame those things. I'm assuming, 100%. You know, I don't know Tamara, but shout out to Tamara, but you know, just because you're bold enough to make that call doesn't mean you didn't have to overcome some fear. Right. And to do it. So and that's what courage is all about. Yeah.
We had an environment, because sometimes I realize in organizations that your leadership, your commander, your chief, your first sergeant, the leaders above you, all of them could foster an environment where what she did was absolutely what we wanted you to do. And then you have those leaders in the middle kind of stop you from that. And I think that's the hard part, right? That's the hard nut to crack, because my unit, it was the 99th Supply Squadron back then, but my unit definitely fostered an environment where it's like, we will take care of you. We just need to know. You come to me. You let me know. Because I will tell you, after 40 days, when I came back, you know who picked me up from the airport? My commander.
Wow.
My commander picked me up from the airport. And so it was an environment there where you could grow and flourish, and it was just that individual. And I will tell you, when I got back from them 40 days, we used to crack jokes. This didn't happen, but we used to crack jokes and say we wondered Mr. Winters threw the master sergeant in the river and killed him. they said the day after all of that happened, like after Mr. Winters took care of me and made sure I was squared away, that the master sergeant was gone.
Wow.
He was gone. He ended up going to Creech out of that squadron. And so that is the type of leadership that I've had. Like, you know how people say they stumble. I stumbled when I was younger, but I always had just really great leaders on top of speckles of some that empowered me and made me bold and made me understand it is okay for you to speak up. You don't just sit there and deal with this behavior. And so I think that's overall, if I could give that to the entire military, like I would give them that, because I really do believe we still have some amazing leaders out there who just don't know what's going on. They just don't know.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And then it's not because they don't want to either. It's just, man, I'm telling you what, the level, the layers. And I from my experience, I think leading about 80 people, that was the most effective I was able to feel, because 80 people, you can get to know them all. There's a certain point, and probably a little bit more than that, but once it hits like 400 500 people, you're like, man, and then you start feeling bad, right? Because you don't know stuff. But I mean, that's a giant ship you're trying to steer. So it's important, that middle, and that's why I think it's so important to have that trickle down mentorship. For a long time, I felt like senior NCOs were mentoring airmen, right? Or they were just trying to get promoted. It just seemed like they were going one way or the other. And then these young airmen immediately were out of FTACs, like, how I make BTZ, how do I become the Chief Master Sergeant Air Force? And you're like, okay. And then the NCOs in the middle, they just kind of left out there, they're just left out there, and they're not getting that mentorship down. And that's when they make a lot of those bad choices. They're making assumptions off of intent. And when we really teach people that culture down and focus on that next level and empower them to teach the level below them. And my NCOs, I want you to teach your airmen the stuff that we're teaching you. That's when you kind of flatten out that we called it flattening the toxic, the curve on toxic leadership. Yeah. I think that's where you kind of get there. And there's some just bad people out there, unfortunately, they are. And then we got to, send them places, usually out the door. Right.
Yeah. But I think this is why I love emotional intelligence so much. Like, I am a fan. I'm so much a fan that my boss, who is amazing to me, she allowed me to get a couple of the instructors as the trainers. So they're going to be able to have the ability to have workshops, because I think it's so important that people just stop for a second and be honestly reflective
Right.
and where you need to grow, right? Because I don't like the word weakness, but you're strong in other places, and in some other places you just need to work on. And I think it's important for people to just feel in a safe space that they can honestly assess themselves and do better. But I also feel like if you just don't want to do better, you have to go, because we cannot continue to have environments where people feel helpless and they feel lost and they don't want to say anything and they go into their box and then they ultimately harm themselves. It bothers me, emotionally, to think that it's somebody out there who felt like that was their only option. And I think that emotional intelligence to me is important on so many levels. And I think my children, when you're the children of military members, we bring some of this stuff home, like all the resiliency stuff that we learned at Travis. I'm throwing that on my kids all the time. And they're just different type of children because they're getting that. But in normal households, that's not happening.
Right.
And so that's why when we get our airmen and they come to us, we have to also look at how we want to, basic training. I'm going to teach you how to put your uniform on, teach you how to follow rules. I'm going to teach you all this other stuff. But then when they get to us at our units, we have to help them grow as humans and be able to deal with adversity before they're in an adverse situation. We want to help them deal with adversity when they're going through it. We'll catch them before they go through it so they're armed when they go, because they're going to face hard times. Something's going to happen. You're going to stumble. Nobody has a perfect career field or a perfect life. You may be awesome at work, but you may meet somebody that you like and you thought they liked you, but really they just wanted to clean out your bank account. Those things happen. So if we arm them with certain tools before they get there, I think that they would be better equipped to deal with it, get over it, and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. You got to do the reps. You got to put some reps in. Sometimes it's just the conversations, and sometimes it's I don't know. In my case, I actually had to go through some actual reps. Fortunately, my parents built us to be pretty resilient. So we got to get that for them. So I know this is like probably the fourth or fifth time we talked about emotional intelligence on the podcast with very different topics, right? So I'll be honest with you guys, like it's one of the things I got to get better at as far as like knowing all the different portions that go into the different things. So I did like a quick dive on the internet, right? And so emotional intelligence has 5 elements: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Do you guys have any recommendations on how someone can increase their capacity for any of those or all of them?
So I got 2 things. So they have free assessments online.
Oh,
Google. They have free assessments online, but the what is his name? It's a emotional intelligence 2.0.
Oh, is that Goldman?
If you buy that book,
Yeah, Daniel Goldman.
Travis Bradbury.
Okay. Yeah.
If you buy that book, you get a free assessment.
Okay.
So, I mean, the book isn't free. So about $13, you get like a for real, no kidding assessment that comes with it. Okay. And so those, I would recommend that people just go do those, because the book is good. Right. The book is good, and you can continuously refer to it with the hardback, the hardcover book. But I think it's important to just start there. I have like different links. Like there's a link for Harvard.
Okay.
And it kind of looks at your biases too, which biases play into emotional intelligence too.
Right.
And so it kind of looks into. So I'll share those if you want.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. We always put all that stuff into the show notes because, people listen to this and then they want to kind of look into the books or whatever else it might be. So those are great resources.
Yeah. But I'm a fan. I always joke with but he fine. I always joke with Chief Holland, who is amazing. Right. And we watched each other grow and we helped each other grow. And I had a phenomenal time in security forces. I love maintenance too, Jose. I had time in security forces. Talk about, just how much I watched him grow. And he went to a training course and he got a whole day of emotional intelligence. And it just warms my heart to watch him because he is amazing. And any defenders that get him, they are so lucky to have him. So
and he's the dude right now. He is the dude. So we're about to we're working on getting him on here too to have a chat.
He's awesome. He got an awesome story. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
You know what? I feel fortunate, blessed, whatever you want to call it, right? Like when you think about the cadre of folks that came out of Travis at that time period, like just
Yeah.
around the world, around the Air Force, like it's awesome. Iron sharpens iron. So it's good to know that.
Yeah,
I
and
was
like
fortunate to
once
be
you move
around you
around,
guys.
yeah, when you move around, you realize it wasn't like that everywhere. I mean, it's very clear, right? I get around, I'm like,
Hmm.
whoa, because I learned how to be a senior NCO at Travis from people like Glow, from Mike Holland and all the teams, and I think it's just kind of it's awesome,
Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome because although when you get a bunch of alphas together, there's going to be some disagreements. One thing that I could tell you is that across the board, as a general, generally everybody was just trying to do the right thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They were just trying to do the right thing, and people had the humility to be willing to do whatever they needed to do to
Hmm.
help each other out, and then the confidence to know that we can. I'm good enough to do it too. So it was an awesome
Yeah.
combination of people.
Yeah. So Glow, you gave us some resources, right? One thing that I want to know, right? Just constantly lifelong learning, right? One of our things we want to do is, so right now is a very special time for you, right? In your religion, right? Being a Muslim. What is Ramadan?
Yeah.
Oh,
So, I'm gonna tell you, Glow. I know you do it. I know it happens. I know the term, and I tie it with the fasting part. But I'm totally ignorant on it. So I'd love a little lesson right here. Yeah.
okay. So I love it. So Ramadan is the last month of the Islamic calendar. It is also the month. Why it's so special? It's also the month where the Holy Quran was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which means peace be upon him. And so when Muslims fast, it is, I guess, in the easiest term, a reset. So during the month of Ramadan, it's not just about fasting. You're fasting, of course, because the thirst reminds you of all the people who don't have clean water to drink or water at all. The hunger reminds you of all the people who don't have what you have. And they can't eat on a regular basis. So the hunger of the poor. But you're also supposed to read the Quran, understand it more, pray more, be nicer more. Because you know me, I'm feisty, right? So during Ramadan, I am not. I pick and choose my battles wisely. I am more cognizant of what I am going to say, how I say it, and just to live the principles of Islam, because it really is what people don't understand. It's such a peaceful religion, and it's just so beautiful because you're in harmony that entire time. And so Muslims use that time to bring themselves closer to God and just focus on what we're here to do. And for a Muslim, what we are here to do is to serve God in the uh, best way humanly possible, and that is being kind to your fellow neighbor. It doesn't matter what religion they are, it doesn't matter what background they are, but being kind to them, taking care of them, taking care of each other, remembering God's words, and just bringing yourself, just centering yourself on the principles of your religion. So that's just basically what it is. And I'm smiling because it Muslims look forward to this time, because we are here too and we fall short, but we're so excited and we feel so lucky and fortunate that we have this month every year to basically get your life. So
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, and I think that education piece and understanding that is so vital, because I think, this is my personal opinion, there's people that attach their personal beliefs on what they see on TV and everything else, right? But then there's the other people that just want to be on their team, and then they want to create the other, and if you're not on my team, then you must be the other. And it's just such an unhealthy way to live, because we're all human beings, we're all here to take care of each other, and just hearing you explain that to us, it just brings even more value to me, to a view on a religion that I always thought was just so amazing, just from the perspectives and the people that I know, but being educated a little bit more on what you're dealing. Because I was like, man, I've seen athletes during Ramadan, right? And they're not able to drink water and they are still crushing it. I'm like, what kind of mental and physical toughness do you have? I mean, it is mental toughness to get through that. But like, even you, Glow, like you're deliberately trying to, concentrate on how you're going to react to people and do all those things during this. I mean, I'm days when I don't have coffee, that's a struggle, right? I mean, like, you know what I mean? So I'm like, man, that's a challenge, you know? And I think I had told you before, Glo, that I wanted to kind of at least put myself through that experience, maybe not for the whole month, maybe, you know, or the whole time, but at least kind of understand it, just because I think it's important for us to put ourselves through those experiences so we can empathize with with the people that we work with and the people that we love and call friends, you know? So yeah, that's something that I'm really interested in. I know you're going to give me some tips to make sure I don't hurt myself through the process.
It's important. And the goal is to keep those habits, right? The goal is to create a habit. And you know, when you do something for about 30 days, that's why we look at the fitness challenge. Fitness challenges are for 30 days, and these other challenges are for 30 days. So for 30 days, the goal is to create a habit. And so I think I shared it on a post before, like the most beautiful Ramadan I've had the whole time I've been Muslim, which I reverted to Islam in 1997. So the beautiful part was when I was at Al-Udeed. And when I tell you that the team of the 379th FSS, they figured out what iftar was. And I mean, they had beautiful dinner for me every night for 30 days in a room. They you know, made sure nobody else would have the room, and they all would come and eat with me.
Right.
And it was just so awesome. And so they would always laugh because they would bring something to me during Ramadan, and I'm go, that's fine. What do you think we should do? And they're like, oh, we like Ramadan, Chief. But I learned, you know, what I learned from them, I got to watch them just handle business. And so it became a habit just to kind of speak softly, communicate a little bit differently, and to read. Because even now there's a course that I'm taking that's free because of the current situation, where you can get a diploma in Islamic studies. And I need to be smarter on my religion, because I realize the more I let people in, because you know, I'm with my friends, I'm completely open, but normally I'm just really private. I don't want people, you know, in my business too much. The more I open myself up, the more I'm like, I have to speak out. I have to talk about our religion, because we have airmen that are Muslim and they're looking at me, and they, you know, they need something from me. So I have to make sure that I articulate our religion properly, because it's just such an amazing thing. Because I always tell people, they go, when did you become Muslim? And I'm like, I've been Muslim the whole time you've known me.
Right. To be fair, I had no idea.
Yeah, same here.
We've all been like really close friends. It just never came up, right? Because I think a lot of the principles with a lot of the major religion, I guess we can call it that, they're very much the same in principle, right? You might have different dogmas or different practices, but they're very much the same. You know, I like to tell people that if I do everything in love, you can get along with anybody. You know what I mean? Just don't have any kind of bad things in your heart, kind of thing. I appreciate you going into that. You know, I tried to get smart on stuff, right? I'm a nerd. Once I want to learn something, I'm YouTubing and reading and all kinds of stuff. So I was watching these different things about that, and I was thinking about just the fast itself, right? Because in the Christian religion, they, you know, during Lent, you know, you'll do the same kind of thing. I don't know if I could make it without drinking water throughout the day, though, right? But there's a beauty in that too, right? Because you like Joe mentioned, right? It's that mental toughness, it's that spiritual toughness you have to develop for yourself. It's
and you're
awesome.
doing it for a reason, right? I know that my reason is to grow spiritually, and to tell y'all the truth, I'm not hungry. I don't, you know, I'm not like I'm fasting right now. Like I'm not hungry. I'm not thirsty. You know, towards the end of the day, I minimize, like I don't go do PT, you know, like I conserve my energy like I'm supposed to. And there's like, Islam has rules for everything. So the biggest part is it's suhoor, and suhoor is breakfast. You have to eat that, and you have to eat certain healthy things. And so that's kind of what I share with other people. I don't miss it. I will get up at 3:00 if I have to make myself something healthy to eat, and take my time and drink water. And it really does satisfy me for the entire day. And of course, you don't, you know, I'm not going out there running 2 miles while I'm fasting. That would be absolutely insane.
Except for Joe over here trying to run half miles or half marathons.
Yeah, but I'm not fat. I'm not.
Ramadan, right?
So I'm not fasting like that.
That's the beautiful part about it, is you follow the rules. Islam lines it out so you don't get sick. And certain people don't have to fast. When you're pregnant, you don't fast, because you have to take care of the baby, right? When you're sick or ill, because it's not supposed to make you sick or ill. It is designed for you to have focus and to focus on those things that matter. So
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So my fast is basically I just drink water and coffee until noon, which is really more like time restricted eating versus fasting. But I have been like trying to push myself on the cardio piece during that, because part of it's mostly discipline, but I just want to test myself. But it's not even close to what you guys are doing. And like even the ones that the athletes, like I'm saying, I'm like, it blows my mind that they're able to perform. We're not talking about out there playing pickup basketball. We're talking about performing at an Olympic level, right? I mean, like what kind of discipline and mental strength do you have to get through that? And it just blows my mind for sure.
So speaking along the same lines, right? So I don't know if you remember this, Glo, but do you remember back? I still had the diamond on. I was at Masawa, right? And I had an airman, and she came to me, and she had come from tech school, and she was looking at getting a religious accommodation to wear her oh my goodness, why am I am totally
hijab.
Hijab? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, is hijab? I've been saying it wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay. Hijab? Is it hijab? Okay, cool.
H-I-J-I-B. Yeah, you're fine.
There we go.
Yeah.
So she wanted to get one, right? And we went through this whole process, and long story short, we ended up getting there. But that's something that you went through as well, right? Like, can you describe that process and how that was?
So I don't know if I ever told you this either. Like, Jose, when you called me, you was like, "Hey, so I got this airman, and she wants a religious accommodation." I was like, "Really?" Because I had been thinking about it, but I hadn't done it. Mm-hmm. And so that was like, again, a sign, right? Like that was one of my signs. And so it was like her, and then it was a friend I knew in the Army. She got her waiver, and then my friend Vanessa, she goes to work at the uniform board. So I was like, "Oh, I must, yeah." So when I talked to you, Vanessa had just got up there.
Wow.
And so that was my sign, right? And so I'm in a joint environment, which is weird because we're under a defense agency. So we don't work for the Office of the Secretary of Defense. I'm not really assigned to Patrick Air Force Base. And so the first part was finding out who's going to do the waiver. Mm-hmm. And so Patrick was like, "Well, I don't tell you, you're not assigned here." And I'm like, "What? Well, who helps me do this?" I was the first one at Patrick to do it. So everybody is confused. But I'll tell you what. I called AFDW, and it was a staff sergeant that answered the phone. She was like, "We got you, Chief. What you need?" Next thing I know, I got a phone call from somebody else, and it was moving like that.
Wow.
So AFDW, if there is anybody who, wants the religious accommodation and they are in a joint environment, then AFDW takes care of it. They do now.
That's good, right? It's always difficult, right, when you're paving the way and you're trying to figure out different things, because so it was always something that was possible. But what I appreciate that the Air Force has done recently is with the new 2903, which is like the Air Force's dress and appearance instruction, right? They tell you everything from how you can wear your hair and nail polish and how long, a male's mustache can be. I mean, everything's in there. They recently made it a whole lot easier to including having sample memorandums in the back, whereas before you just draft a memorandum, and you always get that, and you're like, well, what does it need to say? Oh, just draft it. Oh, okay, cool. So it made it a lot easier. So that's good.
They have, and so ever since, so I was going to do a religious accommodation when I first became Muslim in 97. And so back then you had to do one every time you PCS. And so the wing commander could only approve you to wear it indoors. And so there was no mechanism to get into the Air Force to wear it outdoors. And then it was just so weird. This is my 8th base. Like I literally would have had to just keep doing it. And it was so frustrating and just deflating. And it's not because of the Air Force. I just think time and place, right? We weren't at a time where we had people who could give advice and counsel as they should have. And so the Army was actually first in how they kind of revolved theirs. And then we followed them. And I think I am so proud of the Air Force for giving it to the wing commanders and then making it a one and done.
Right. And so like the problem is so funny because they like sometimes they don't know, but then there's a lot of blowback that I've seen and read, you know, and I try not to read stupid comments on Facebook and social media because sometimes it just gets toxic. But
Yes, it
but,
does.
but I've seen some stuff where I was talking about, well, some of the explanations are, you know, it's a uniform, and then the other ones, and by the way, my uniform has changed numerous times since I've been in the Air Force. So, but
4 times.
yeah, but besides that, like, some people are like, oh, you're going to open up the doors for people to ask for all kinds of stuff. And I was like, okay, look, if you get, and by the way, I've been around a little bit now. I haven't seen too many just random wild requests come up. I mean, sometimes you do get them, right? But if those are worth the risk of taking, you know, to assume those to be able to accommodate an entire group of American airmen that want to serve, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, okay, so I get a weird request every now and then that I got to like really investigate, but these ones I get on this side is because it makes them feel more comfortable and be able to live their meaning and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that sounds like a risk I would want to assume every single time as a leader, right?
100%.
Yeah, and it just, you know, it just doesn't make sense. But I think a lot of it is we project our own, and then we're also creating that other all the time, like I talked about earlier. But I was thinking, like, well, what kind of, like, did you get a lot of blowback when you, because like you said, you set the example too, because you didn't just get the approval, you set the example, which I think is so important that, you know, we lead by example, by showing people more than just, you know, just doing it behind. And I always talk about there's no off button to leadership. And if you've done it, you've shown us, you've put it out there. And I assume that there was some blowback that you might have got some static on the way.
Yeah. So somebody, you know, you don't have personal relationships with everybody on Facebook, but the day that I got my waiver, already, you know, I was already ready. I had my jab. And so the day after I got my waiver, I came to work and I took a picture in front of this lamp at my job. And so I put, you know, just being who you are and, you know, living your truth and all that. And so I posted on my personal page. And, you know, all my friends saw it. Y'all saw it. Oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. Somebody screenshot it and sent it to the Airman NCO and Senior NCO page.
Of course.
I'm at the house playing Phase 10 with my children. And my niece and nephew was here. So I'm playing Phase 10 with them. And I'm like getting text messages like crazy. Ooh, girl, you famous, LOL, right? Because we talk about that page a lot.
Yeah.
And so at first I was irritated, but I watched Chief Selena Fry go through it. I've watched other leaders go through it.
Right.
And the advice they always gave me is, you know, you don't combat negativity with negativity, right? It doesn't matter. Those people don't know you, blah, blah, blah. But I will tell you what, I started reading those comments and all of a sudden I see airmen and senior NCOs and NCOs and officers and people who knew me and knew who I was, and they were not having it. They were not having it at all whatsoever. And so I ended up not having to see anything. And it was this one comment where this guy was like, you know, how he felt about me wearing my hijab and uniform. And somebody goes, I bet you won't tell her to her face. Yes, I will. And they tagged me. Chief, this person is at Patrick. He got something he wanted to say to you. And so the young man, right? Like he deletes his comment. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
He didn't want no smoke, man.
Right. And so it bothered me. But on the other side, like people I hadn't talked to in years was like, this is what you're not going to do, you know, and they kind of took it for me. I didn't have to say anything. So I just realized that those that mattered most, the people that I took care of, those are the people who were like, you know, you don't understand who she is. And they weren't worried about what was on my head. It was all about what was in my heart. And so it was just, I think whoever screenshotted it, right? Like I often wonder if they got the opposite of what they wanted.
Right.
Because people don't send things to that page for nice stuff, for nice comments. They don't. And they send it because they want controversy. They want to see, you know, what people are saying. And but on what other people don't know too, in that same post or maybe a day or two, I also had a team building thing that we did with hula hoops. And so that same person screenshot that and sent that to Airman NCO and Senior NCO page as well.
Right.
But you know, that didn't get that much
right. Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
And so it's been, but nobody has, people were asking me, well, when did you become Muslim? When did you become Muslim? And so that's why I put that post. I've been Muslim since '97. In Philadelphia, it's a large Muslim community there. You can't get out of Philadelphia and not know something about Islam. You can't. The males in my family, they're Muslim. So I've been around the religion my entire life. And so, really that incident with Airman NCO with Senior NCO, that was the only thing I had. Nobody, I think people have questions. I really do. And I don't know why they won't ask them. They don't want to lose my friendship, or they don't want to offend me.
Right.
But some people will come and ask me more so of, hey, I have an airman and this airman is Muslim, and how do I take care of him or her, right? So I haven't gotten any, nobody's come to me, to my face, and kind of about me wearing my hijab. But I know that it happens. I have not heard anything about it happening in the Air Force. But I hear a lot of stories from some of my sisters in the Army, just some of the things that they're going through. But I've been fortunate, but I also don't put things public either. Right. I very, very rarely where I will put something that public people can, that anybody can from. I had commented one time on Instagram, and it was a Muslim Women's Day. Somebody made that up, but it was Muslim Women's Day, and it was an Air Force recruiting site, and they had posted the picture of the woman who's going to be the first female Muslim chaplain for us, but in the entire DOD. And the Air Force recruiting, they posted something really nice, and I'm like, oh, this is so sweet, and it's hashtag Muslim Women's Day. And some random person comes out of nowhere and it was like, too bad Sharia law doesn't agree with you serving in the military. And so I said, too bad ignorance is a choice. And so the individual goes, well, it would be nice if you explain to me how I'm ignorant. Yeah, I'm going to just leave you right there.
Right. Yeah, there's no point.
So it's all about engaging, because my religion teaches me you do not go back and forth with people about your religion. You don't. You don't argue about it. There's no point to argue. You can have a discussion, but when it gets to a point where you getting heated and you arguing, we don't do that. So you be your way and to me be mine.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great point, because when you're already on that team, like I keep on going back to that, when you're on that team and that's the mentality you have, you're not even open to learning anyway. So what's the point? You're going to go back and forth with somebody, like, and it just makes no sense. And they take things out of context all the time. Just like that site you talked about. It was funny. One time back at Spangdahlem, the leadership team used some Unite funds to go. We all went out to do some education and went out to a museum in Bastogne, and it ended up on that page talking about, oh, leadership's out, chilling while we're all at work. And I'm like, all of you guys are doing the same thing. There's people going, there was a dude who went, the one whole team went went go-karting yesterday. The other team's going to do something else, but somebody just wanted to throw that up there, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to look at these stupid comments, right? Because it started getting all crazy. But then you start seeing the comments of the people that and all of them, just like you said, came to defense of, this is an amazing team, leadership team, and this and that. So that does make you feel good. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So Glo, I want to try something I've talked to Joe about for a little while, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna call this the leadership rapid fire. It's a LRF, all right?
LRF.
So it's four questions.
Okay.
He's gonna come at you.
Okay.
Tell us what you got.
Ready? Okay.
Right. Ready. First one. What's your favorite leadership trait?
Honesty.
What's your favorite quote?
People will remember what you said. They will remember what you did. People will not remember what you said. People will not remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
Nice. What's your number one book for an aspiring leader?
Leadership 101 by John Maxwell.
All right. And last one is, how do you find harmony between life, leadership, and learning?
I find the joy in it. I can always find harmony because everything is a blessing. I just find the joy in it. There is joy even in the most frustrating situations. There's joy in it.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
So this brings us to the end of this podcast. I'm not sweating bullets no more. So thanks for getting me out of my comfort zone.
You did awesome, man. You did awesome.
Appreciate that. So is there any parting words that you'd like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
Make a conscious effort to get to know the people around you, and you'll be surprised at what you find. That's
amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Glo. I mean, just coming on. This is one of my favorite conversations I've had in a long time. And I know I miss you dearly, and can't wait till we get to see each other physically again. And keep working on that job for me at DEOMI.
I'm telling you, because let me tell you, we've been. I had a spirited conversation yesterday about making sure that we get the right person, and is it always supposed to be a 3F4?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, yeah. Thanks, Glo. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, y'all. I miss y'all. This is great. You did good. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll get you on here again eventually.
Yes.
Yeah, this was good.
Yeah. So.
Nice. Well, all right, everyone. So we appreciate your time. This is episode 7. So stay tuned for episode 8. The llamas are out.
Llamas out.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the show. We'd love for you to connect with us at www.llama-leadership.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/Llama Leadership and also on Instagram at Llama Leaders. And a big thanks to Mike Whitmer for the music. To check out more of his stuff, go to soundcloud.com/Mike-Whitmer. Thanks again. See you on the next episode.